My name is Jack, and this is the story of how my life, once filled with joy and stability, took an unexpected turn. My wife, Katie, and I have been together for 8 wonderful years. Our marriage has been a source of deep happiness, marked by shared interests and a love for cultural experiences. We've always found joy in exploring the arts, attending concerts, theater performances, and particularly street art festivals. There's something special about wandering through vibrant streets, admiring colorful murals, and engaging with the creative spirit that fills the air. It was one of those festivals that brought us closer together, and it became a cherished tradition for us to attend these events whenever they came around. Katie, with her boundless enthusiasm and a keen eye for art, often led our adventures. Her excitement was infectious, and her passion for discovering new artists and their work made every festival an extraordinary experience. We looked forward to these outings as a way to connect, appreciate art, and savor the moments we shared. But that was before everything changed, before the festival that would unravel everything we had built together. It was a brilliant Saturday morning, the kind that felt almost too perfect to be true. The sky was a clear, endless expanse of blue, dotted only by the occasional fluffy cloud drifting lazily by. The city was alive with the sounds of weekend hustle, distant chatter, the hum of street vendors setting up, and the rhythmic clatter of coffee shop patrons. Katie and I had just finished a leisurely breakfast on the patio, savoring the last sips of our coffee and enjoying the warmth of the sun on our faces. Katie had been animated all week about the upcoming street art festival. It was her favorite time of the year when the city streets transformed into a canvas of vibrant colors and eclectic designs. With a sparkle in her eyes and a playful grin, she turned to me, clearly bubbling with excitement. "Jack, I've been looking forward to this festival for weeks. It's today, and they say it's going to be amazing. I want to go and see all the new art and installations. I've even heard there will be live performances and interactive displays." I glanced at the clock on the wall, and then back at my laptop, where a mountain of unfinished work awaited me. I could feel the stress building up as I thought about the looming deadlines. "I wish I could join you, Katie, but I'm swamped with work today. There's this big project that's due soon, and I'm barely making any headway. I need to stay and get it done." Katie's initial excitement faltered for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure, her enthusiasm undiminished. "Oh, that's too bad. I was hoping we could go together, but you know what? I'll go by myself. I've been looking forward to this, and it'll give me a chance to explore on my own. You can catch up with me later or come to the next one with me." Her determination was admirable, and I could see how much this meant to her. I offered her a warm smile, hoping to match her upbeat spirit. "You should go and have a great time. I'll make it up to you once I'm done with this work. Just take lots of pictures for me, okay?" Katie's face lit up with a smile of relief and excitement. She quickly gathered her things, her eagerness apparent in her brisk movements. As she headed for the door, her anticipation seemed to almost shimmer around her. "Don't worry, I'll get plenty of pictures. I can't wait to tell you all about it when I get back." I watched her leave, her silhouette disappearing into the golden glow of the morning. I could see her already lost in thoughts of the festival, imagining the vibrant street art and the lively atmosphere. Little did I know, this seemingly ordinary day was about to become a turning point, setting in motion a series of events that would unravel the fabric of our lives. As the door clicked shut behind Katie, a profound silence settled over the house. The vibrant energy that had filled the air moments before seemed to dissipate, leaving me alone with the growing pile of work that awaited me. I took a deep breath, trying to focus on the task at hand, but the absence of Katie's cheerful chatter and infectious enthusiasm made the house feel oddly empty. I walked back to my home office, a small, cluttered room that had become my fortress of solitude during these relentless workdays. The desk was a chaotic mess of papers, notes, and half-empty coffee cups, a testament to the amount of work that had piled up in my absence. I sat down heavily in my chair, feeling the weight of the deadlines pressing down on me. The soft hum of the computer was the only sound in the room as I began to sift through the stacks of paperwork. My email inbox was overflowing with messages, each one a reminder of tasks I had yet to complete. I opened a document and tried to immerse myself in the project, but my mind kept wandering back to Katie and the festival. I imagined her walking through the festival grounds, her face alight with the joy of discovery. I could picture her admiring the murals, engaging with the artists, and perhaps even chatting with strangers about the vibrant street art. The thought of her enjoying herself was a small comfort amidst my mounting stress. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as I typed away, trying to make a dent in the work that seemed to multiply with every passing minute. My phone buzzed occasionally with notifications, mostly reminders and updates that did little to lift my spirits. I glanced at the clock, noting how quickly the hours were slipping by, and forced myself to focus on the tasks at hand. Occasionally, I would hear distant sounds from outside, a burst of laughter, the low rumble of traffic, or the faint strains of music. Each sound was a reminder of the vibrant world beyond these walls, a world that Katie was exploring while I was trapped in the monotony of my work. The solitude was both a blessing and a curse. It allowed me to concentrate on my work without distraction, but it also highlighted the emptiness left in Katie's absence. I tried to push these thoughts aside and concentrate on the documents in front of me, but the gnawing sense of loneliness persisted. By late afternoon, I had made some progress but still had a long way to go. My eyes were tired from staring at the screen, and my back ached from sitting in the same position for too long. I stood up to stretch, taking a moment to glance out the window. The sun was beginning to lower, casting long shadows across the street, and I wondered how Katie's day had unfolded. I hoped she was having the time of her life, finding inspiration and joy in the festival. It was her passion, and I had always admired her ability to immerse herself fully in the things she loved. As I sat back down to tackle the next batch of work, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of envy for the experiences she was having, while I remained entrenched in my world of deadlines and responsibilities. The house felt quiet and still, and I was left alone with my thoughts and the never-ending pile of work, counting the hours until Katie would return and fill this space with her stories of the day. As the afternoon wore on, I was buried in work, trying to fend off the growing fatigue that accompanied the endless stream of emails and documents. The hum of the computer and the rustle of papers were my only companions until my phone buzzed, breaking the monotony. It was a message from Katie. I glanced at the screen and saw a photo of a dazzling mural, bursting with colors and intricate designs. The caption read, "Look at this amazing piece. The artist's use of colors is just phenomenal. I'm having such a great time." I couldn't help but smile at her enthusiasm. I quickly typed back, "That looks incredible. I wish I could see it in person. How's the festival overall?" Katie's reply came almost immediately, filled with excitement and detail. "It's fantastic. The atmosphere is electric. There are so many people and the street performers are adding such a lively touch. I've seen some amazing artwork and even had a chance to chat with a few of the artists. They're so passionate about what they do." Another message followed, this time with a short video clip of a live performance. The camera wobbled slightly, but I could make out a group of performers in bright costumes, dancing to an infectious beat. Katie's voice came through clearly. "This performance is so much fun. The energy here is off the charts. I wish you were here to experience it with me." Her messages were like little windows into her day, each one filled with a sense of wonder and excitement. I responded with encouraging words, trying to keep the conversation light despite the growing envy I felt. "It sounds like you're having an amazing time. I'm really glad you're enjoying yourself. Keep the photos coming." Katie obliged, sending a steady stream of pictures and updates. There was a snapshot of her with a large, colorful sculpture, her face beaming with joy. "This sculpture is huge. It's right in the center of the festival, and it's mesmerizing. I'm trying to get as many photos as I can to show you everything." Her enthusiasm was contagious, and even though I was buried in work, I couldn't help but feel a bit of the festival's magic seeping through the screen. Each message and photo was a reminder of the vibrant world she was exploring, a world that felt so distant from my reality. As the sun began to set, the messages continued to flow in, each one brimming with discoveries and experiences. Katie's excitement was palpable, and I could sense the deep joy she was finding in every corner of the festival. It was clear that this was more than just an outing for her. It was an adventure, an immersion into a world of creativity and expression. Despite the mounting workload, I found myself eagerly awaiting each new update, my curiosity piqued by the snippets of her day. It was a bittersweet feeling, knowing that she was having such a wonderful time while I was stuck in the confines of my work. But her messages also reminded me of the vibrant life she brought into our shared experiences. and I looked forward to hearing more about her festival adventures when she returned home. As the days passed, Katie's visits to the street art festival became a regular occurrence. Each time she left, her excitement was evident, and she always returned with a new batch of photos and stories. However, it wasn't just the frequency of her visits that caught my attention. It was the subtle shifts in her behavior and mood that started to puzzle me. At first, I thought little of it. It was natural for Katie to be passionate about something she loved. Yet, over time, I began to notice a pattern. Her return from the festival was often accompanied by a sense of elation, but also by a certain detachment. Conversations with her grew shorter, and her responses to my questions became more clipped and distracted. One evening, after another of her long festival visits, I asked how her day had gone. Instead of her usual detailed recount, she simply said, "It was good. I saw some interesting art and met a few new people." Her tone was a far cry from the exuberance I had grown accustomed to. I brushed it off as fatigue, but the changes didn't stop there. Katie started coming home later and later. What used to be a late afternoon excursion stretched into early evening and then into the night. She would arrive, tired but animated, and quickly retreat to bed, leaving me with just a few moments of conversation before she fell asleep. Her mood also seemed to fluctuate more dramatically. On some days, she was unusually irritable, snapping at small inconveniences or minor questions. Other times, she was overly emotional, laughing or crying over things that seemed insignificant. I found myself walking on eggshells, trying to avoid triggering her volatile reactions. One night, as we sat in the living room after one of her late returns, I noticed her scrolling through her phone more often than usual. She would smile at something on the screen and then quickly hide it if I glanced over. When I asked about it, she brushed me off, saying she was just keeping up with the festival updates. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The vibrant energy and excitement that had initially characterized her festival experiences seemed to have morphed into something more consuming and elusive. Katie's passion for the event had always been a part of our shared interests, but now it felt like it was drawing her away from me. Her emotional fluctuations and increasing absences left me feeling disconnected and increasingly concerned. The more I observed, the more I realized that the festival was no longer just a backdrop to her days, but seemed to be transforming into a focal point of her life. Her enthusiasm, once a source of shared joy, now seemed to be overshadowing the balance and intimacy of our relationship. I began to question if there was something more behind these changes, something beyond the surface of her festival experiences. It was as if the festival had become a catalyst for a shift I couldn't fully understand, and it left me grappling with a growing sense of unease and uncertainty about what was happening to the woman I loved. The festival had been in full swing for several weeks now, and Katie's frequent visits continued. Each time she came home, she would regale me with stories and updates, but over time, I noticed a subtle shift in her recounting of the events. Where she used to be detailed and enthusiastic, she now seemed to gloss over specifics, avoiding any mention of the things that had particularly caught her interest. One evening, after she had returned from what was supposed to be a quick trip to the festival, I asked her about the day's highlights. "So, what did you see today? Anything new or exciting?" I inquired, hoping for one of her usual lively descriptions. Katie hesitated for a moment, her gaze drifting to the side as she considered her response. "Oh, it was nice. I saw a few new pieces and met some interesting people," she replied vaguely. I pressed a little further, trying to engage her in conversation. "What about the new installations? You mentioned last time that there were some interactive pieces you were excited about. Did you get a chance to experience any of them?" Katie shifted uncomfortably, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her sweater. I didn't spend too much time on those today. I mostly just wandered around and enjoyed the atmosphere. There were so many people, and it was a bit overwhelming." I noticed her reluctance to dive into specifics, a stark contrast to her previous enthusiasm. It was as if she was consciously avoiding details, deflecting the conversation away from the parts of her day that seemed to matter most. In our next conversation, I asked her about a particular artist she had mentioned previously. "You talked about that muralist who was creating some incredible work. Did you see more of their pieces today?" Katie's response was quick and dismissive. "Oh, I think I saw something from them, but I didn't pay much attention. I was more focused on some other things today." It was clear that Katie was deliberately skirting around certain topics, changing the subject swiftly whenever I brought up specific details. I started to notice a pattern. Whenever I asked about particular aspects of her festival experiences, she would either provide a brief, non-committal answer or quickly pivot to another subject. One night, as we were winding down after dinner, I brought up the idea of attending the festival together once the weekend arrived. How about we go together this Saturday? It would be fun to see it through your eyes and experience some of these new things you've been enjoying. Katie's reaction was immediate, and she seemed almost uncomfortable with the suggestion. Oh, I don't know. It's been so busy and I've kind of gotten used to going by myself. Besides, I'm not sure what the schedule will be like. It might be crowded or something. Her evasiveness was becoming more pronounced, and it left me feeling unsettled. It was as if she was hiding something, not just from me, but from herself. The festival, once a shared joy, was now shrouded in a veil of secrecy and half-truths. I tried to reconcile the changes I was witnessing with the person I knew and loved. The shift in Katie's demeanor and her avoidance of details left me grappling with a growing sense of unease. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her festival visits than she was letting on, and I found myself increasingly troubled by the secrets and omissions that seemed to be drifting between us. It was another one of those late evenings when Katie returned home from the festival, her energy still buzzing despite the hour. I had been working late into the night, and I welcomed her with a weary smile, eager to hear about her latest adventure. Katie dropped her bag and immediately began to recount her day with unusual enthusiasm. Jack, you won't believe who I met today. There's this incredible artist named Alex. I had no idea how talented he was until I saw his work in person. I looked up from my laptop, intrigued. Oh? Tell me more about him. What kind of art does he do? Katie's eyes sparkled with excitement as she described Alex's work. His pieces are just stunning. They're so vibrant and full of life. He specializes in abstract murals and street installations. I saw a few of his recent pieces today and they blew me away. There's something so unique about his style. I could tell she was genuinely impressed. That sounds amazing. Did you get a chance to talk to him? Katie nodded eagerly. Yes, I ended up chatting with him for quite a while. He's incredibly passionate about his work and has such an interesting perspective on art. We talked about his inspirations and his creative process. He even gave me a little tour of his latest installations. Her excitement was palpable, and I couldn't help but feel a twinge of curiosity mixed with a hint of jealousy. It sounds like you had a great time. What did you think of his latest installations? Katie's face lit up as she described the installations in detail. They're all so interactive and thought-provoking. There's this one piece that changes colors based on how people move around it. It's like the art comes alive with the energy of the crowd. I noticed a small, almost wistful smile playing on her lips as she spoke. He sounds like a really interesting guy. Did you and Alex talk about anything else, or was it mostly about his art? Katie hesitated for a moment, a flicker of something I couldn't quite place crossing her face. Oh, we talked about art and his upcoming projects. He's working on something big for the next festival, but he didn't go into too much detail. He seemed focused on his work. Her response was nonchalant, but there was something in her tone that made me pause. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but her eagerness to share everything about Alex's art, while skirting around the specifics of their conversation, left me with a lingering sense of curiosity and unease. As the evening wore on, Katie continued to enthuse about Alex's work, her words painting a vivid picture of the festival's creative atmosphere. I listened attentively, trying to catch every detail, but a nagging feeling persisted in the back of my mind. The way she spoke about Alex, the way her eyes lit up when she mentioned his name, hinted at a deeper connection that went beyond mere admiration. When Katie finally drifted off to bed, I was left alone with my thoughts. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her admiration for Alex than she had let on. The passion she had for his work seemed to overshadow even her usual enthusiasm for the festival, and it left me with a growing sense of unease about the true nature of her newfound interest. As the weeks progressed, the frequency with which Katie mentioned Alex began to increase noticeably. What started as a casual mention evolved into a recurring theme in our conversations. Each time she came home from the festival, her stories seemed to revolve more and more around him. One evening, as I was finishing up a particularly grueling day at work, Katie walked in with a beaming smile and a small package in her hands. "Jack, you have to see this!" she announced excitedly. I looked up from my laptop, trying to shake off the fatigue. What is it? Katie set the package down on the coffee table and began to unwrap it with eager hands. Inside was a beautifully printed art book, its cover adorned with vibrant abstract designs. This is Alex's latest collection. He just published this book featuring his most recent works. I picked up a copy today. You have to check it out. She flipped through the pages, showing me a range of colorful, dynamic artworks. Her eyes sparkled with admiration as she explained each piece, detailing Alex's unique style and the inspirations behind his creations. This one, she said, pointing to a particularly striking mural, is my favorite. Alex told me he was inspired by the interplay of light and shadow in urban environments. It's so mesmerizing, don't you think? I nodded, trying to match her enthusiasm, though my curiosity was tinged with a hint of discomfort. It's impressive. He certainly has a distinctive style. It's clear that he puts a lot of thought into his work. Katie's passion for Alex's art was evident in every word she spoke. She went on to describe his techniques, his use of colors, and the innovative approaches he employed in his pieces. It seemed like every conversation we had was colored by her admiration for him and his work. A few days later, Katie came home with more updates. Guess what? Alex is having a new exhibition this weekend. I got us tickets so we can go see it together. The suggestion caught me off guard. Really? I thought you were enjoying going to the festival on your own. Katie shrugged, a hint of excitement in her voice. I've been thinking it might be nice for us to experience this together. Plus, it's a chance for you to see some of the works I've been raving about. I think you'll appreciate his style in person. As the weekend approached, I found myself increasingly intrigued and apprehensive. Katie's frequent references to Alex and his art had woven a complex web of admiration and mystery. While I was eager to see the exhibition and support her enthusiasm, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this newfound interest than she was letting on. On the day of the exhibition, Katie's excitement was palpable. She buzzed around the house, preparing for the event with a fervor that was both endearing and slightly unsettling. When we arrived at the venue, her energy was contagious, and she eagerly led the way, guiding me through the gallery with a practiced hand. As we wandered through the exhibit, Katie's eyes followed Alex's work with a rapt intensity. She pointed out details, explained artistic choices, and even engaged in animated conversations with other attendees about his pieces. It was clear that her admiration had grown into something deeper, though I still struggled to understand the full extent of her feelings. Throughout the visit, I did my best to engage with the artwork and support Katie's enthusiasm. Yet, a part of me remained on edge, trying to piece together the significance of Alex in our lives. Her frequent mentions, and the way her eyes lit up when she spoke of him, suggested a connection that went beyond mere admiration, and it left me with a growing sense of curiosity and unease about the evolving dynamics between them. As the festival continued, Katie's late-night returns became increasingly frequent. What had once been an occasional late evening now transformed into a regular pattern. Each night, she would come home well past midnight, her enthusiasm for the festival as vibrant as ever, but her excuses for the late hours grew more elaborate. One evening, as I sat waiting for her to come home, I glanced at the clock and sighed. It was already well past 11, and there was no sign of Katie. I was accustomed to her late returns by now, but the routine was wearing thin. When the door finally swung open, Katie walked in with a tired but satisfied smile. "Hey, Jack," she greeted, her tone bright despite the late hour. "You won't believe the night I had." I looked up from my book, trying to mask my concern. "It's getting late. What kept you at the festival this time?" Katie shrugged off her coat and dropped her bag. "Oh, there was an impromptu art talk by one of the featured artists. It was fascinating. They discussed the evolution of street art and its impact on urban spaces. I lost track of time listening to the discussion and exploring the additional exhibits they set up." I nodded, though I couldn't help but notice how her explanations seemed increasingly rehearsed. "That sounds interesting. How was the talk?" "It was amazing," Katie replied with genuine excitement. "The artist had some thought-provoking insights. Plus, there was a new interactive installation I wanted to check out. It was worth staying late for." The pattern continued over the next few weeks. Katie's explanations varied: additional exhibitions, late-night gallery openings, or spontaneous gatherings at the festival. Her stories always seemed to end with her excitement about discoveries and engaging conversations with fellow festival goers. Each excuse sounded convincing, yet a lingering sense of discomfort grew within me. One night, I decided to join her on one of these late excursions, hoping to get a clearer sense of what she was experiencing. As we arrived at the festival grounds, it was clear that the energy was still high, with music and lights adding to the festive atmosphere. Katie led the way with her usual enthusiasm, eagerly pointing out the various artworks and installations. We eventually found ourselves in a quieter part of the festival, away from the main crowds. Katie seemed particularly animated, discussing the nuances of the art and the artists she had encountered. I tried to engage in the conversation, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider in a world that had increasingly become her domain. As the evening drew to a close, we walked back to the car, and Katie's phone buzzed with a message. She glanced at it quickly and then slipped it back into her pocket. "I'm glad we came out tonight. It's always nice to see the festival through someone else's eyes." I gave her a tired smile. "It was interesting, but it's been a long day. Maybe we should head home." Katie agreed, though she seemed a little preoccupied. As we drove home, I glanced at her and wondered if the festival had become more than just a passion for her. The frequent late nights and her elaborate explanations began to paint a picture of a world that seemed increasingly separate from our shared life. Her dedication to the festival and her growing involvement with Alex and his work were consuming more of her time and energy. Each night as I waited for her return, I felt a growing distance between us, filled with questions and concerns that were left unspoken. The late-night walks were not just a routine. They had become a symbol of the shifting dynamics in our relationship, leaving me to grapple with the uncertainty of what was happening in Katie's world. As the festival continued and Katie's involvement deepened, the changes in her behavior became increasingly noticeable. It was subtle at first, a slight shift in her tone, a distracted glance here and there, but over time the changes grew more pronounced, and it was impossible to ignore the growing distance between us. Our daily interactions, once filled with warmth and shared moments, had started to feel more formal and detached. Conversations that used to flow effortlessly now felt strained and clipped. I would ask about her day, or try to engage in casual chatter, only to be met with brief, almost mechanical responses. One evening, I came home from work and found Katie in the living room, engrossed in her phone. I tried to start a conversation, hoping to reconnect. "How was your day, Katie? Did you see anything interesting at the festival?" Katie barely looked up from her screen. "Oh, it was fine. There was a new mural that I saw. I posted some pictures online." I tried to continue the conversation, asking more about the mural and the artist behind it, but Katie's responses remained curt and distant. She seemed more focused on her phone, scrolling through social media or checking festival updates. The lack of engagement was palpable, and it left me feeling more like a bystander in our own home. Even our shared routines had begun to feel different. Meal times, once a chance for us to connect and unwind, became brief functional affairs. Katie's responses to my questions were polite, but lacked the usual warmth and interest. I would ask about her plans for the weekend, or her thoughts on a new restaurant we had wanted to try, only to be met with non-committal replies and a quick change of subject. I noticed that she no longer shared her day's excitement with the same enthusiasm. Her stories about the festival had become more perfunctory, lacking the detail and passion that once characterized her recounts. When she did talk about her experiences, it was often in a detached manner, as if she were recounting a series of events rather than sharing a personal joy. Our evenings together were marked by an increasing sense of formality. The intimate conversations and laughter that once defined our time together were replaced by polite exchanges and a growing silence. I found myself increasingly isolated, struggling to bridge the emotional gap that seemed to be widening between us. Katie's focus on the festival and her interactions with Alex had become central to her world, and I felt as though I was being pushed to the periphery. Her once vibrant presence now seemed overshadowed by a preoccupation that I couldn't quite grasp. The changes in her behavior and the growing distance between us were becoming impossible to ignore. As I watched Katie's attention shift away from our relationship and towards her festival experiences, I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of loss. The connection we had once shared was slipping through my fingers, replaced by a new, unfamiliar dynamic that left me feeling disconnected and uncertain about the future of our relationship. It was one of those routine evenings where I had come home after a long day, feeling more tired than usual. Katie was out again at the festival, and I decided to relax by catching up on some household chores. As I was tidying up, I noticed Katie's phone lying on the coffee table. She must have left it behind in her haste to get to the festival's latest event. I picked up the phone, intending to leave a quick reminder for her about the groceries we needed. As I unlocked the screen, a notification popped up, a message from Alex. The name caught my eye, and my curiosity got the better of me. I opened the message thread, thinking it would be a harmless exchange about the festival. What I found made my heart sink. The conversation between Katie and Alex was filled with details and plans that went beyond mere discussion about art. They were planning their next encounter with a level of intimacy and enthusiasm that struck me as deeply personal. The messages were full of excitement and anticipation. Katie had sent a message saying, "I can't wait for the next festival. I've heard that the new installations are going to be incredible. Are you free this weekend? I'd love to explore them with you." Alex's reply was equally enthusiastic. "Absolutely. I've been looking forward to it too. Let's plan to meet on Saturday afternoon. I've got a few surprises in store for you. Can't wait to see your reaction." Katie responded with a string of emojis and a message that made my chest tighten. "Sounds perfect. I'm so excited to see what you have planned. It's always more fun experiencing it with you." The exchange was peppered with personal touches and inside jokes that hinted at a closeness that went beyond simple acquaintance. There was an evident chemistry in their messages, and the way they talked about their upcoming plans felt charged with a deeper connection. I felt a mix of betrayal and confusion as I scrolled through the conversation. The casual mentions of plans and excitement about seeing each other made it clear that there was more to their relationship than I had been led to believe. The nature of their communication suggested a level of intimacy and personal connection that was troubling, especially in light of Katie's increasing detachment from me. I put the phone down, my mind racing with questions and emotions. The discovery had confirmed my growing suspicions, but it also left me with a whirlwind of uncertainty about how to confront the situation. Katie's messages with Alex painted a picture of a relationship that extended beyond professional admiration and into something much more personal. The realization that Katie had been sharing her excitement and plans with Alex, and not with me, stung deeply. It was as though the very connection we once shared had been transferred to someone else, and I was left grappling with the emotional fallout of what I had discovered. The phone lay there on the table, a silent witness to the secrets that had been concealed for so long. I had to decide how to address the situation, knowing that whatever course of action I took would forever alter the dynamics of our relationship. The messages were more than just texts. They were a revelation of a bond that had been growing in the shadows, and they left me facing the difficult reality of what that meant for us. After discovering Katie's secret messages with Alex, my mind was overwhelmed with a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. I was determined to understand what was going on between them, and this newfound sense of suspicion made me more observant of Katie's behavior than ever before. It began with small changes. I noticed that Katie's daily routines had shifted significantly. Her once predictable schedule was now unpredictable. She seemed to be more engrossed in her phone, often keeping it out of sight or turning it face down when she was around me. Whenever she received a message, she would quickly glance at the screen and then tuck the phone away, her face flushed with a sudden, unexplained burst of emotion. Katie had also become increasingly protective of her phone, often carrying it with her even when she was just going to the kitchen or stepping outside briefly. She would lock it and keep it close, almost as if it were a prized possession she couldn't afford to let out of her sight. This new behavior was markedly different from her previous relaxed attitude toward her phone, and it piqued my curiosity. Our conversations, which had already become formal and distant, now seemed almost scripted. When I tried to engage her in casual discussions about our day or our plans, she responded with short, rehearsed answers and then quickly changed the subject. Her responses were polite, but lacked the warmth and spontaneity they once had. It was as if she was carefully managing her interactions with me, avoiding any conversation that might lead to deeper inquiries. One evening, while Katie was out at yet another festival event, I found myself unable to ignore the growing sense of unease. I decided to investigate further, hoping to uncover more clues about her relationship with Alex. I went through the common areas of our home, looking for any signs of her changing behavior or hints that might shed light on what was happening. In the study, I found a stack of flyers and brochures from the festival, each one marked with notes and scribbles. Among them was a ticket stub with Alex's name written on it. My heart sank as I realized the ticket was for an event that Katie had mentioned in passing, but had never fully explained. As I continued my search, I found more indications of Katie's preoccupation with the festival and her secretive behavior. Her journal, which she had once kept open and shared with me, was now hidden in a drawer, locked away with a key that seemed to be missing. I had always respected her privacy, but the changes in her habits made me feel like I was being shut out of a crucial part of her life. The most unsettling discovery came when I found a collection of photographs on her phone, images of Alex's artworks and candid shots of him at various events. Each photo was accompanied by affectionate captions and comments, indicating a deeper connection than I had previously realized. As I pieced together these observations, the pattern became increasingly clear. Katie's daily habits had changed. Her phone had become a fortress of secrets, and her interactions with Alex had grown more intimate and personal. The evidence pointed to a relationship that extended well beyond professional admiration, and it was becoming more apparent that she was deeply involved with him in ways I had only begun to understand. The sense of betrayal and confusion was overwhelming. My attempts to engage with Katie had only highlighted the widening gap between us, and the more I uncovered, the more I felt like an outsider in my own life. Her secrecy and the growing evidence of her involvement with Alex left me grappling with the painful reality of our shifting relationship. The clues were undeniable, and the pattern of her behavior was clear. I was left with the difficult task of confronting Katie with the truth I had uncovered, knowing that doing so would force both of us to face the consequences of the changes that had taken place. The path forward was uncertain, but the growing distance and hidden secrets were impossible to ignore. Katie returned home later than usual that evening, her face glowing with the kind of excitement that had become all too familiar. She was carrying a small gift bag from the festival, which she placed on the kitchen counter before greeting me with a warm, if somewhat distracted smile. "Hey, Jack," she said, setting down her things. "I'm so glad to be back. The festival was incredible tonight." I cut her off gently but firmly. "Katie, we need to talk. I've seen some things on your phone that we need to discuss." Her smile faltered and she turned to face me with a look of apprehension. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "I found messages and calendar events on your phone. Messages from Alex, the things you've been planning and discussing with him." Katie's face went pale, and she took a step back, her eyes widening. "Jack, I can explain. It's not what you think." I felt a surge of frustration but remained calm. "Then please explain. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been seeing Alex much more intimately than just a festival acquaintance." She hesitated, her eyes darting around the room, as if searching for an escape. "It's complicated, Jack. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Alex and I, we just what?" I interrupted, feeling a mix of anger and hurt. "From the way you've been talking to him, it seems like there's a lot more going on than just a casual friendship." Katie's shoulders slumped, and she sighed deeply. "Okay, you're right. I've been seeing Alex, and it's more than just friendly. We've developed a relationship, and it's been—" She stopped, tears forming in her eyes. "It's been something I didn't plan for. It started with our shared interest and grew into something deeper. I never intended for it to become an affair, but it did." "I'm so sorry, Jack." The admission hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt a rush of emotions, anger, sadness, betrayal, all swirling inside me. I tried to keep my composure but found it difficult to hold back the pain. "How long has this been going on, Katie? How could you let it get this far without talking to me?" Katie's voice was barely above a whisper. "It started a few months ago, during the festival. It was supposed to be just friendship, but things evolved. I didn't want to hurt you, and I thought maybe it would just be a phase, but it became more complicated, and now I'm stuck in a mess I can't easily fix." I could see the regret in her eyes, but it did little to ease the hurt I was feeling. "And what about us, Katie? What about everything we've built together?" Katie wiped away a tear, her voice trembling. "I don't know what to say, Jack. I never wanted to hurt you. I thought I could manage my feelings, but I realize now how wrong I was. I'm so sorry for the pain I've caused. The weight of her words settled heavily on my shoulders. The realization that the intimacy and connection I thought we had was now fractured was overwhelming. I had to grapple with the decision of whether to try to salvage what was left of our relationship or to move on from the betrayal. Katie's apology, though heartfelt, did little to undo the damage. As we stood there, the silence between us was filled with the echoes of what had been lost. The conversation marked a turning point, but it was clear that the road ahead would be fraught with difficult choices and emotional upheaval. The days following our conversation were filled with unbearable silence. Katie and I had tried to talk things through, but the weight of her confession loomed over us, casting a shadow over any attempt at reconciliation. Her guilt was palpable, but the damage had been done, and I struggled to find any semblance of normalcy in our shattered world. One afternoon, as I was working in the study, Katie came into the room, her eyes red and swollen from sleepless nights and tears. She had packed a few of her belongings into a small suitcase, and the sight of it made my heart sink. "Jack," she began, her voice trembling, "I've made a decision. I need to be honest with you. I'm leaving." The words struck me with a force that left me momentarily speechless. "Leaving? Katie, you can't be serious. We can work through this. We can find a way to fix things." Katie shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I know this is hard to hear, but it's not fair to either of us to keep pretending that everything is okay. Alex and I, we've made a life together, and I can't ignore those feelings anymore. I need to be with him." Her decision felt like a knife twisting in my chest. "So, you're just going to leave everything behind? Leave us behind?" Katie's voice was filled with sorrow. "I'm so sorry, Jack. I never wanted it to come to this, but it's become clear that I can't continue living a lie. I need to be true to myself, and that means being with Alex. I hope you can eventually find it in your heart to forgive me." The finality in her tone was unmistakable. As she gathered the last of her things, I felt a deep sense of helplessness. I watched as she walked through the house, a place that once held so many shared memories, now becoming a backdrop to her departure. When the door closed behind her, a profound emptiness settled over me. The home that once felt so warm and full of promise now seemed cold and hollow. I wandered through the rooms, touching the familiar objects that had been part of our life together. Each item, from the photographs on the walls to the small trinkets we had collected over the years, felt like a reminder of what had been lost. The days that followed were a blur of grief and confusion. The routine of daily life seemed meaningless without Katie's presence. The space where she once was felt like a void, and I found myself struggling to cope with the reality of her absence. The house, once a symbol of our shared dreams and happiness, now stood as a monument to our fractured relationship. I spent countless hours reflecting on the relationship we had, trying to understand where things had gone wrong and how we had arrived at this point. The pain of her departure was a constant ache, a reminder of the trust that had been shattered and the love that had been lost. In the quiet moments, I grappled with feelings of betrayal and sorrow, wondering if I would ever be able to move past this experience. The future seemed uncertain, and the path forward was clouded by the weight of what had been lost. The memories of Katie and the life we had built together were now tinged with a sense of melancholy, marking the end of a chapter that had once been filled with hope and promise. Katie's departure irrevocably changed the course of my life, leaving me to navigate a world without her. The journey ahead was daunting, but I knew that I would have to find a way to rebuild and heal from the devastation of our shattered relationship. The days have turned into weeks since Katie left, and the echoes of our past life still linger in the corners of the house. The emptiness that now pervades our home is a stark reminder of the life that was once filled with shared laughter, dreams, and love. I've spent countless hours reflecting on what happened, trying to piece together the fragments of our relationship and understand the lessons embedded in this painful experience. The betrayal has left me with a profound sense of loss, but it has also given me a new perspective on relationships and the importance of vigilance. In the aftermath of Katie's departure, I've come to realize how crucial it is to stay attuned to the signs and signals in a relationship. The changes that seemed subtle at first, Katie's increasing secrecy, her emotional distance, the way she became engrossed in her phone, were all indicators that something was amiss. If I had been more attentive, perhaps I could have addressed the issues before they escalated. Reflecting on our time together, I see now that relationships require constant communication and a willingness to address problems before they fester. It's easy to become complacent, to assume that everything will remain as it was, but that kind of thinking can be a dangerous illusion. The signs of change can be subtle, but they are there, and it's essential to recognize and act on them before they lead to irreparable damage. Katie and I had shared many happy moments, but the changes in her behavior should have been a wake-up call. I was so focused on my routines and work that I overlooked the growing distance between us. Her increasingly frequent absences, her secretive phone habits, and her emotional shift were all red flags that I failed to acknowledge in time. In the quiet solitude of my new reality, I've begun to understand the importance of emotional awareness and openness in relationships. It's vital to communicate openly with a partner and to be willing to confront issues rather than letting them simmer beneath the surface. The trust and connection that are so fundamental to a relationship can easily be eroded by unspoken problems and unmet needs. As I move forward, I am learning to rebuild my life from the ground up. The process of healing is slow and often painful, but it is also an opportunity for growth. I am learning to be more in tune with my feelings and to approach future relationships with a renewed sense of awareness and honesty. The scars of this experience will always be a part of me, but they have also imparted valuable lessons about trust, communication, and the importance of paying attention to the signals in a relationship. The journey ahead is uncertain, but I am determined to embrace it with a clearer understanding of what it means to truly connect with another person. The pain of betrayal has been a harsh teacher, but it has also offered me insights that I will carry forward into the future. Life, after all, is about learning from our experiences and striving to build something meaningful from the lessons we have learned.